I am Dr. PSV Shanmukhi, Associate Professor, Department of Physics, Aditya University. Now, I would like to explain about the lasers, that is introduction to lasers. So, being a little bit large one, we are just dividing this one into lasers too. In this topic, at the end of this lecture, the students will understand the population inversion, and the pumping methods, pumping schemes, laser action, etc. Actually, these are very important the parameters in case of laser light. Means to produce the laser light, to understand the lasers, to understand the applications of lasers. So many terms are included in this one. We need to know those terms. Out of those terms, the population inversion, pumping methods, schemes, laser actions, etc. So that after at the end of this lecture, students will understand about these the terms, and also they can learn what is the laser action, how the laser light will be produced. Coming to the again, what is a laser? Basically, laser stands for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, that is the acronym. Laser is an acronym of the light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. In fact, it is a light source which differs from the conventional light source. We have so many conventional light sources, but rather than that, we are going for the laser light production because it has more advantages. Anyhow, coming to what are the terms, what are the parameters we need to understand the production of laser light. There are so many things. Out of them, first one, population. What is the population? What is meant by population inversion? Pumping methods, pumping schemes, and finally laser action. These things we are going to discuss now. Coming to the first one, what is meant by population? Generally, in this chapter, population means the number of atoms in a given energy state is called population of that state. For example, two energy states are there. Say this is the ground state E1 and this is the excited state E2. In the ground state, say there are some number of atoms. That number of atoms denoted by N1. In the excited state, the number of atoms denoted by N2 say. So, N1 is called population of the ground state, N2 is called population of the excited state. Simply, the number of atoms in the given energy state is called population of that state. So, coming to population inversion. In general, population of the ground state always exceeds the population of the excited state. You observe N1 population in the ground state, N2 population of the excited state. The most general thing is N1 is greater than N2. Population of the ground state is greater than population of the excited state. This is called normal state and the equilibrium state. Suppose if N1 or N2 is greater than N1, population of the excited state exceeds the population of the ground state. You observe here population of ground state N1. So, here for example given 3 atoms, population of the excited state given say there are 6 atoms. So, in this one N2 is greater than N1. This is called population inversion or inverted population state. So, in general it is not possible. We have to make it possible by adopting some different techniques. So, the equilibrium state is N1 is greater than N2. But we can make it possible that N2 greater than N1. So, that method is called pumping method. The method of achieving the population inversion. Here N2 is greater than N1. We can make it possible by adopting some techniques. That method is called pumping method. The method of achieving the population inversion is called pumping method. Now, what are the different pumping methods we have? See, those pumping methods are optical pumping, electrical discharge, direct conversion of electrical energy into optical radiation, chemical pumping. So, these kind of different pumping methods we have. So, what is meant by optical pumping? Simply, optical energy, photon energy is used. For example, two energy states are there. This is the ground state E1, excited state E2. In the ground state, the population is given by N1, excited state population given by N2 say. Here the photon energy h nu is incident on the atom. By absorbing that energy, atoms will go to the excited state. So after some time you observe N2 will be greater than N1. Continuously these atoms are absorbing the energy, they are taking, means they are going to the excited state. So after some time you can observe N2 will be greater than N1. So in this process we are supplying the photon energy or light energy. This process is called optical pumping method. Coming to the second one, electrical discharge. Actually, this optical pumping is used in case of ruby laser. You will come to know later. And electrical discharge method, in this one, we take one electrical discharge, one tube, there will be two electrodes and the voltage will be supplied to that one. In that one, gas molecules are provided. You will come to know after, means at the time of helium neon laser. Electrical energy is absorbed by the atoms or molecules so that they will be promoted to the excited state. So this method is called electrical pumping method or electrical discharge. Next one, direct conversion of electrical energy into optical radiation. Just like in case of diode laser or LED, light emitting diodes. So what happens? Direct conversion, electrical energy is absorbed and it is converted into optical radiation. So at the time of lasers, we will come to know all these things. Chemical pumping, exothermal chemical reaction is used here. Exothermal means energy is released, thermal energy is released. That energy is absorbed by the atoms in the ground state. Later, they will go to the excited state. Population inversion will be achieved. This is called chemical pumping method. Basically, there are several pumping methods, namely optical pumping, electrical discharge, direct conversion, chemical pumping. These are some popular pumping methods. Okay, coming to the next one, pumping schemes. Actually, there are two types of pumping schemes, 3 level and 4 level. 2 level is also there in case of direct conversion. Hardly we go for diode lasers case. Anyhow, here we concentrate on 3 level pumping scheme. Simply there exist 3 energy levels. In case of 3 level pumping scheme, 3 energy levels are existing. What are those 3 energy levels? Ground state E1, excited state E3 and metastable state E2. 3 energy levels are existing. Ground state is highly stable. If the atoms are present in the ground state, they can stay for infinite time. They can stay for infinite, you don't disturb them, you don't supply any energy, they can stay there for infinite time. And afterwards, you can use any pumping method. As we discussed just now, you can apply the optical energy, electrical energy, chemical energy, something like that. So that energy is absorbed by these atoms, they will go to directly the third energy state or excited state. Generally, excited state is highly unstable. It is not at all stable state. That's why they have to come to the lower energy states. So coming to the next energy state is E2, metastable state, intermediately stable state. That's why from E3 to E2, the atoms or ions, they will come to E2 energy state by emitting some energy. Anyhow, it is non-radiative transition. Why? Because energy released is not sufficient to produce the photon energy. So it is in the form of thermal energy. So to cool the system, cooling arrangements will be provided in different lasers. Okay, the atoms or ions are coming to the energy state E2, metastable state, means it is intermediately stable state. So they can stay for some time, not infinite time, they can stay for some time. Here what happens is, the atoms in the excited state, they should come to the ground state. Here we adopt one procedure that is called laser process or lasing process. I just explained this one in the next article. Now simply coming to 3 level pumping scheme, there exist 3 energy states. One is the ground state E1, excited state E3, metastable state E2. Ground state is highly stable, whereas the excited state is highly unstable. Metastable state is intermediately stable state. So 3 energy levels are existing in this one. That's why it is called a 3-level pumping scheme. Coming to 4-level pumping scheme. Generally, we can expect here there exist 4 energy levels. What are the 4 energy levels? Ground state is E1, excited state E4, and there are 2 metastable states E2 and E3. As usual, initially atoms stay in the ground state. They stay in the ground state, they can stay for infinite time. Now, by any pumping method, maybe optical or electrical, whatever that may be, these atoms, they absorb the energy, they will go to the excited state E4. Therefore, this E4 is not stable, it is highly unstable. So, E4 highly unstable excited state. So, the atoms should come to ground state. You observe some transitions possible here, E4 to E3, E4 to E2. Generally, these ions or atoms, E4 to E3 transition occurs in general. E4 to E2 transition is rare, very rare transition, but E4 to E1 transition is there, say it is not at all possible. They cannot come to ground state directly by releasing that much energy. If they release that much energy, the system will blast. You can come to know this one about this one in case of helium neon laser. Okay, no problem. E4 to E1 transition is not possible. Therefore, most of the atoms, they come to the metastable state E3. 1 or 2 atoms will come to the metastable state E2. Actually, E2 and E3, these two are also metastable states. You observe, after some time, population of the energy state E2, population of the energy state E3, you observe, here it is taken as N1, here it is taken as N2. N2 will be greater than N1. Population inversion will be achieved between E2 and E3 states. So, anyhow, between these two, laser action takes place. So, what is the laser action? Next one we shall see. Anyhow, the ions will come to the energy state E2, and the moment they come to the energy state E2, they come to ground state with fast decay by the collisions with the walls of the glass chamber, releasing some thermal energy. Cooling system is also provided there. Simply what we have to understand here, in case of 4-level pumping scheme, 4 energy levels exist. What are those 4 energy levels? Ground state E1, excited state E4, 2 metastable states E2 and E3. Here ground state highly stable, excited state highly unstable, E2, E3 metastable states are intermediately stable states. So, this kind of mechanism or this kind of scheme is called 4-level scheme. Simply you have to understand one thing, pumping method. What is pumping method? What is pumping scheme? Pumping method is nothing but what kind of energy we are supplying. Whether you are supplying the optical energy, electrical energy, what kind of energy to promote the atoms to the excited state. Pumping scheme is nothing but what is the route, in which route this mechanism is taking place, in which route the laser light is emitted. That is called pumping scheme. There are 3-level pumping scheme and 4-level pumping scheme and 2-level also. Anyhow, coming to the next, laser action, the most important parameter and means in the lasers, that is the laser action. What is meant by laser action? Suppose this is the ground state E1, excited state E2. In the ground state, population say N1. In the excited state, population suppose it is N2. N2 is greater than N1. It is not the normal state, it is the population inversion or inverted population state. That's why just let us wait for some time. Out of all the atoms in the excited state, first one atom comes to ground state emitting a spontaneous photon. So, this photon will stimulate an atom in the excited state. So, what happens? This comes to ground state emitting 2 photons. These 2 photons will stimulate 2 more atoms. Therefore, they will come to ground state emitting 4 photons. In this way, chain reaction takes place. The same thing is depicted here. So, the incident photon is provoking or stimulating an atom. Therefore, 2 photons are generated. Each photon is stimulating 1 more atom. 2 photons are generated. Like that, multiplication effect is taking place. This process, or this is a chain process. This process is called laser action and lasing mechanism. So, this is the most important parameter or feature in case of laser light production. The same thing we discussed in case of 3 level and 4 level also. You just observe E2 and E3, E1 and E2 states. E2 state say higher energy state, E1 the ground state say. Continuously the ground state atoms are taking the energy, going to the excited state, coming to the metastable state, staying for some time. After some time, what happens? There exists a population inversion, N2 will be greater than N1. Therefore, between E1 and E2 states, laser action takes place. Means one atom comes to ground state, emitting a spontaneous photon. This stimulates an atom that comes to ground state, 2 photons will be released. They will stimulate 2 atoms, therefore 4 photons. So, in this way, a chain reaction takes place in between E1 and E2 states in case of 3 level. Similarly, you observe 4 level scheme also. Between E2 and E3 states, metastable states, there is a population inversion. That's why between those two, laser action takes place. What we have to understand is, for the laser action to take place, or to get the laser light, laser action is must. To get the laser action, population inversion is essential. So, to get the population inversion, pumping method, pumping schemes are important. So, all these things are very much essential things to get the laser light. Here you observe there is a multiplication effect, highly intensified light is produced and high directional light also produced. Basically, what is meant by laser? Laser stands for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Amplified light we are getting, and moreover stimulated emission we are taking, and also multiplication effect, highly intensified light, high directional light we are getting. So, to get the laser light, all these features are very much essential. That's why we have discussed in this article what is meant by population, what is the population inversion, how do we achieve the population inversion, what are the pumping methods we have discussed, what are the 2 types of pumping schemes we have discussed, a 3 level pumping scheme and a 4 level pumping scheme. By using all these things, how the laser action is taking place to get the laser emission, that what we have seen in this article. Okay, thank you.